Good. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. So my name is Klaus Heine. I'm professor of Lyon since almost a decade. Professor of luxury marketing in Shanghai. And today I would like to welcome you to a webinar about how to create a high-end brand, but actually more specific about how to move from brand purpose to brand activism. So let's jump into the presentation. I will share my screen with you. One moment. Okay, so I want to start with an advert here to show you actually what my topic is, what I'm specializing in. You see here a typical advert of a luxury brand, Dolce & Gabbana, and if you think about it, if you look at it, what do you see? What is typical about this brand compared to mass market brands? If you just think about it for yourself, you can also say it if you like, but I think most of you will see it has something to do that there are not many products. It's not about the products, but it's about image and it's about emotions. And this was actually something that I discovered already a long time ago, and was always fascinated that if you put a luxury product on a table, it has an aura. It has something more that is just about the products. And my main specialization is about how to create high-end brands and especially about how to create brand meaning, image and emotions. And today I want to go into something more specific, and this is brand purpose, and specifically because today everyone is talking about brand sustainability, CSR. This is a very specific type of purpose. And if brands are really putting this at the heart of their business and of their brand identity, then they become actually activist brands. And I think this is a very, very important topic in the moment, because many consumers expect brands today to stand for something, to take a stand. But it's easier to say than to actually do it. I would like to look at some cases today with you, and you will see that, yeah, that's a good idea, but it's not always turning out like we want it. And I want to combine that whole thing by also talking about our new high-end program. So at the same time, while discussing the topic, I would also like to show you what we actually do and what the high-end program is about. And I'll just show you some examples of some brands that we work with. For instance, we did a study for Montblanc to analyze how they could turn their potential, or their users, their one-time buyers, into collectors. We work with Longqiu and on developing a Chinese watch brand, Chinese luxury watch brand. We work with Gaggenau. It's one of the best, or actually the most expensive kitchen appliance manufacturer, and help them to find or to move from B2B, which they are very good at, surprisingly for a luxury brand, to B2C, how to serve actually Chinese end client. We developed a gaming tool for Kering Group, or a concept for that helps to actually select new talents. It's a new talent acquisition tool. We had a study with Christian Dior about a concept for a new luxury bag for the Chinese market. Yes, so, and we did also a project with Polo Ralph Lauren about their conversion rate, to improve the conversion rate in the stores. So many projects you will see here. In the moment, we do a project with Serapion. It's a brand from Milan, and we helped them to develop their bespoke services, because that's a brand that's on the level of Hermes, Goya. It's not that well known, but it's very, very top. So they sell bags for about 35,000 euro. And I think for us, being in Shanghai or to study in Shanghai is a fantastic advantage, because I believe this is the center of the high-end industry in Asia. So all the headquarters for high-end luxury brands of China, and often also of Asia, you can find in Shanghai in walking distance. So, and I think for our students, it's extremely helpful to work with these brands, to see and to learn from these brands and from people who are responsible for marketing, branding in these brands. And I think that's why it's, from this perspective and also from a culture perspective, Shanghai is the perfect place to be and to study in Asia. I'll just see if there's a question here. Yes, if you have questions, please collect them and we have a Q&A at the end. Okay, Sarah Bien, I just want to give you an example of what I mean by like what our brand's doing, right? In the moment, Sarah Bien was bought by Richemont 2 years ago. Richemont, the big luxury group, they bought this independent label from Milan. And of course, you know, if they buy that, they must be sure that it has potential. So what they do in the moment is, for instance, they try to develop new iconic products, which you can see here. It has a typical pattern similar to the monogram pattern of LV. And what they did at the very beginning is to develop exclusivity. You see here, that's their iconic product, the Mosaico bag, and it's in red. And red is preserved for Anna. And Anna is the craftsman. She has the color red. Another craftsman has maybe yellow or green. So the color is connected to a craftsman, and it shows this bag was made by Anna. And every time Anna is doing a bag, she's actually putting this stripe here that you can see in the middle somewhere else, wherever she likes. Sometimes it's vertical, horizontal, wherever she wants to put it, she puts that. So that means every bag is unique. And it is the first time that a luxury brand is actually allowing the craftsman to put their own mark on a brand, on the product. And that means for them, one of the most important things to develop a new luxury brand was to develop rarity. And this is not about doing the same thing that Hermès and Louis Vuitton is doing waiting lists and limited editions. For new brands, it's about finding new ways to use the rarity principle. And I think they do this in a very nice way. That's just one technique they do, but it's one of the things they really need to do to develop this brand. And I find it very interesting when we work with these brands to see what are these brands doing in the moment, what's in their mind, what are their challenges, what are their projects, so that we are also working on things with our students that are relevant for the brands, and that we also can adapt all our courses to stuff that is practically important and really relevant for luxury brands. Okay, this now we use to for another main point, and this is that the program is also very much about something else. And I want to give you an example. You see, this is a wine field, and it's actually really happening, or it was happening. You see that there's the wine Chateau Latour from the year 2000. It costs $500 per bottle. And you see also the other wine, Haut Pauillac, the same year, but only $20 per bottle. And the only difference between the two is 80 centimeters. That means it's quite impressive. So we all know, of course, that wine also depends on the soil, on the sun, on the harvesting principle and other things. But obviously, what this shows is it's probably much more. It's much more also about branding, right? It's about what you do to make people believe about this brand. And this is then at the end really worth something. A massive difference that is probably based on the branding strategy. Another example is a study, an experiment done by Rob Walker and his team. They bought on the flea market some kitschy objects, like this banana that you can see here. It's a plastic banana, but they bought a lot of other stuff. And then they went to some people who are very good in writing stories, and they asked them to come up with some stories about these products. Something like personal, how this object may had an important role in their life, how they grew up with it or whatever. And then they put these objects on eBay and were waiting to see how much people would pay for it. And it shows that this, for instance, this banana had cost 25 cents on the flea market, and they sold it for $76 US. I mean, it's impressive. That means, in average, they had a markup of 3,000%. So that means a good story is making a huge difference. So it's not about the object, it's about the story behind. It's again about branding. And the idea is that we connect a certain idea to a brand or product. Like if you see it this year, for instance, you see maybe adventure or family or workaholics or romance. And this is then connected to a product, to a hat, or to a t-shirt, or to a brand. So that means that's the basic idea. How can we actually create emotional benefits and image? Today, most brands actually compete on this basis. It's not about the products anymore that you can just order somewhere. It's about what's behind, what's more. And in magazines today, you can even find, and I found this is quite extreme, it's a magazine that shows products, but there's something missing if you take a look, and it's actually the product. So they make adverts, but the product is actually not even there anymore. And there's something that is extremely specific for luxury brands, and this is that compared to many other categories, or to all other categories, they have the highest share of emotional and symbolic benefits. And very often, or actually for all luxury brands, the symbolic benefits are bigger than the functional benefits. That means we are creating value, benefits, not in the factory, not by making a car or by making something, but actually in the marketing department. And I think this is something like an art of marketing that we all can learn from luxury brands and high-end brands, because they're very good in that. And even if you want to work later in another industry, even in B2B, I think this is the kind of a industry where we can learn best about branding principles. Okay, and now if you think about what is this symbolic area here? What is this symbolic benefits? How to create that? What do we actually want to symbolize? Then I developed the framework, it's called the Brand Cell 7, to do that. That means it gives us an overview about all the options that we have to create symbolic meaning. And we could go through that and think about all the options we have. For instance, the vision, the overall goal. It's something related with the product, with our customers. A big part is also the character of the brand personality, brand culture, brand face, brand theme, and so on. There's brand relationship and touch points. And if you know what you want your brand to stand for, you have to think about how to express that by a logo, by a pattern, any other brand signature, and so on. So this is roughly the idea how to develop a brand identity. But this is something we discuss for not just one, but several courses. So if you go through that step by step, you can develop a brand. But today, of course, it's just a webinar. So we focus on something, and this is this part up here. I also have written about this actually a whole book, and this is also based on a new online program and like courses that we do in the moment. So it's all related to how to build a high-end brand. But today we just focus on that thing here, on the brand vision part. That means on something that gives us a direction, a goal, and this also shows customers that we have a certain goal, that we stand for something that we want to do, something, achieve a certain societal goal even. And recently I had a chance to do actually an interview with the head of Shangxia, Mrs. Jiang, and the former president of Hermès, Mr. Thomas. And the idea was, if we want to know how to create a high-end brand, then we should ask people who definitely should know, right? This was at the 10-year birthday of Shangxia, the luxury brand from China that was created from like Hermès, and the father of the brand is Mr. Thomas, and the mother of the brand is the CEO of Shangxia, Mrs. Jiang. And I asked them, what do you think is the key factor that makes a high-end brand successful? I didn't tell them anything. I didn't prepare them in any way of what they should say, but I was really surprised that they said, or Mr. Thomas actually said, the key success factor is that you have a clear vision, that you really know what you want when you create a high-end brand. So I was really shocked that this aspect, the vision, seems to be absolutely key. And I had also asked them if they ever had trouble together, if they were fighting about some branding issue. And they said, no, actually not. And I think they were not lying. That was really honest. And they said that the reason they never, of course, besides discussing stuff, but they were never fighting, was that from the very beginning, they had the same vision. They both believed in actually the same goal set. Actually not. And I think they were not lying. That was really honest. And they said the reason they never, of course, besides discussing stuff, but they were never fighting, was that from the very beginning, they had the same vision. They both believed in actually the same goals, the same higher purpose, and that's why they never had big problems. And they always knew the big road, the big development that they wanted to do. So we see brand vision seems to be extremely important. And there are different types of visions or goals. And there's a mission of what we do for the customers. And there's a purpose about what we do that is something like a higher goal beyond making money. And consumer surveys actually today show that this seems to be extremely important, especially for millennials, because more than 90% of millennials would switch brands to a brand with an associated cause. That means something like improving society, saving the environment, or something like this. I think that's also very impressive that it's not only important from a managerial or brand management perspective, it is also very much desired by customers today. So that means millennials prefer or like to have brands that have a purpose that stand for something. And now I would like to present you and discuss with you two main case studies, one from the mass market and another one from the luxury market. And then I would like to derive from that 10 lessons learned about how to engage and how to do brand activism, how to become an activist brand. And I want to start with the Gillette, a mass market brand. And they did, not a year ago, but maybe half a year ago, they did a spot. And it was an advert against toxic masculinity. You can see below here, there's a link. So you can, if you like, you can watch the whole advert. And it says here, bullying, harassment, is this the best a man can get? It's only by challenging ourselves to do more that we can get closer to our best, to say the right thing, to act the right way. We are taking action at, and so on, join us. So this is a video where they show certain situations, and Gillette is promoting the idea to say the right thing, to do the right thing, and of course they also define what the right thing is. For instance, they say, if, for instance, a guy is bristling behind a woman, then no, this is not the right thing, and someone is stopping this guy and says, no, it's not cool, not cool. Or you see here in a garden two young, if, for instance, a guy is bristling behind a woman, then no, this is not the right thing, and someone is stopping this guy and says, no, it's not cool, not cool. Or you see here in a garden two young guys are wrestling with each other, and the father is coming and says, that's not how we treat each other, okay? So that means they're telling people what not to do or what to do. They want to tackle toxic masculinity, that means the negative sides of masculinity. So that's the thing. Maybe look at this spot because it got a massive response. And what can you learn? First of all, this is a spot that is, I think, a prototypical example for what brand activism is. Now, if you want to know what brand activism is, watch the spot and you know. And what we learn is, first of all, it seems that Gillette is believing in something, and brand activism means that you not just believe in that, but you even do it if you would lose money. That means your beliefs must be stronger than, what you maybe can earn or not. So they said, even if we would lose money, that's worth it. So the Gillette CEO said, losing customers over this Me Too campaign is the price worth paying. This is the basic idea of brand activism. That means you believe in something, you really do it, you believe strongly, and if some people don't like it, you still do it because you really believe in it. The problem is that losing customers turned a bit far in this case. If you look at responses from customers on social media, they were pretty harsh, pretty bad. Actually, we could say it was a shitstorm. Reactions were overwhelmingly negative, and about 9 of 10 comments were negative. So, we can call it definitely very, negative, right? So, Gillette, the worst humanity can get, and similar comments. So it means to say it would be a success is really difficult because the brand, in fact, lost $8 billion because of that advert. It means losing in this way means that they actually had to reduce the value of this brand. The mother company had to reduce the value of the brand by $8 billion. That's quite massive. I think it's hard to lose that much money with an advertising spot, but they made it. And they spent $8 billion so we can learn something. Now, that's at least something. So what is it? What's the problem? What's the lesson? One key thing is that you need to do really in-depth research to understand how your brand activism is changing things, what it's really doing at the end, and how it might be received by people. And we can be sure that it was probably not done correctly by Gillette. If you see this negative feedback, if you would have only asked 10 people about the feedback, it's pretty obvious that this would have been extreme negative feedback. So you would have learned it by only a few qualitative customer feedback. And you see here the same with Gucci. They had this pullover, and I think we all can imagine within looking a few seconds at this picture that this means trouble, right? It smells like trouble. If you post something like this, the response will be cultural appropriation within seconds. So there will be a nightmare within seconds. And the problem is, why not asking at least 10 customers qualitatively before you do stuff, right? Sometimes it's so obvious, it's so easy to actually foresee these things. The next lesson from Gillette is corporations should be very sensitive to the potential of customers who actually do not want that big corporations tell them what to do. And in the case of Gillette, it was perceived that way. It was perceived in a way of they tell us how we should live and what we should do. And of course, no one likes if someone else tells them what to do. It's just not the right tone, not the right brand tone of voice. And for big corporations, using politically charged language is a problem as well. So that means Gillette did a lot to further divide the American society into like parts. That means, bottom line is, it doesn't matter if you think that the idea, what they actually do, is good or bad. Fighting brand toxic masculinity, you might think is a good idea, or maybe it's a bad idea, but it doesn't matter what you think. What they did is definitely not the right way. Right? They didn't do it the right way. For instance, they could have used, instead of criticizing others by saying, you're not allowed to do this and you do that, they could have also used positive examples, right? Showing how people are doing something and praising them without harming someone else, or many other things. So that means they had a good idea, they believed in something, but the way they did it was a nightmare. So we can really see that brand activism has potential. We see that so many people actually want it, especially millennials. But at the end of the day, doing it right is a major challenge. So for some brands, that's actually an advantage, because luxury brands, they need to polarize, and big brands, especially mass market brands, they cannot. Everyone needs to like Volkswagen and also Gillette and all these kind of brands, because they are mass market brands, they target almost everyone. But luxury brands and high-end brands, if they are small enough, then this is the ideal prerequisite to actually engage in brand activism, because you don't need a specific dress. You can choose, there's so many dresses out there, and you can choose the dress that has the right meaning that you want. This is different for razors or for these kind of mass market products. It means if your brand is small enough, the more and the better you can use actually brand activism. It fits much better. So, for instance, here is a product. It's the gender pay gap watch. That means, how does it work? It's a watch for guys, and at a certain time, in the afternoon, it gives a voice. It rings and it says, "Now is the time when your female workers are getting no money anymore. They are stopped paying because of the gender pay gap." So that's a small idea, and of course, this works. It may work because it's a small brand. So it means small brands have a much better, much more opportunities to use brand activism. I want to now go in another example, another case study of brand activism for a brand that is fancy, SK-II. You probably all know the brand. It's actually the biggest high-end brand on the planet, also owned by the same mother company. It's also owned by P&G. It has more than 1 billion euros revenues per year, and it's from Japan. I actually had worked with this company for a while, and the team of SK-II, they were showing me a video that they recently did, a new campaign, and wanted to know what I'm thinking about it. And I also want to quickly show this video because, no, not the video, but I want to show you some storyboard of the video. So you get an idea, because they also jumped into brand activism. And what they are tackling, not toxic masculinity this time, but be left over woman. So they show a video because they want to tackle the societal problem, or let's say the discrimination of women who are not married over 30. They think that's not okay, that's not nice, we want to do something about it. So what they do is they show here a woman. For instance, you see a video with a woman and her parents, and the mother is talking about this lady here, and she says she's just average looking, not too pretty, and you see her next to it, and then the mother says that's why she's left over, and it's actually extremely sad. But then they say, it's time to fix this problem. They show several of these women, and then they say, okay, I just wish my parents would understand my way of living. And what they do is they invite their parents to the marriage market in Shanghai. And before that, they made pictures of this woman, and then they wanted to tell their parents a message, or send them a message. And now you see here beautiful pictures of these ladies, and the statement, I don't want to get married just for the sake of marriage. I want to live happily that way. Okay, and then you see the parents smiling, laughing, and everything's fine again. Being independent is a great lifestyle, and it's the life I want. Okay, so everyone is happy, problem solved. Don't let pressure dictate your future. So that's the slogan. So that's also another, I think, actually a very good example of brand activism. Now, do I like it? No. But the feedback was much, much better. The majority of the feedback was rather positive. But there are still, I think, some problems. And if you think about it, you see here, it's an SK2, it looks like this, right? Fancy. And the problem is, or what we could actually learn, is that corporations should always be very sensitive to the potential of customers being skeptical about their motives. In other words, we need to make sure that people really believe that we are really doing this stuff in an honest way, that we really believe in the stuff that we are talking about. And if you look at this brand, right, SK2, usually very, very fancy, very beautiful woman, always the most beautiful woman and so on. And do we really believe that this brand is now from all of a sudden, out of the blue, fighting for the left over woman? No, maybe some people believe that, but maybe some not. No? I think that's very difficult to achieve, but Patagonia, another high-end brand, they are actually doing that pretty well. So they are about saving resources. And that means they are saying, you shouldn't buy so much. They even put an advert in New York Times saying, don't buy this jacket. And that's a picture of their jacket. So that means they're telling people, don't buy stuff, don't buy too much, don't buy too often again. And by being very much an activist brand for anti-consumerism, they are selling even more. So it's actually quite funny, but it seems that people believe them. They find Patagonia as an extremely authentic player about their brand purpose. So that's very important to have that in mind. Do people believe it? Are we really is it sure that people are buying the story? Next lesson, lesson 7, is that bright washing, green washing, pink washing, however you call it, that means slapping the imagery of a movement onto a brand's logo or packaging is simply not enough. So it must be really coming from the heart. It's not about just jumping on a bandwagon on some topic that we may find is en vogue in a moment. No, that's not the way it works. It is something that needs to be really deeply believed within the brand. And lesson 8, that we also can learn from SK2, in order for brand activism to be really received in a good way, the cause usually needs to be connected to the company's product line or brand in some way. What does it mean? Dove, for instance, is a brand that is doing that extremely well. They sell cream, and originally they just sold cream, but today they are actually selling self-worth. The feeling of women to be more beautiful or to actually be beautiful like they are. They are about women empowerment. And what's really perfect is that it's not unrelated to their products, right? They use the cream, and by using the cream, they're feeling more beautiful. That means their cause is extremely linked to their product. It means by using the product, people feel the cause. And actually, by using the product, the cause is actually developed. It's closely linked. And this is, of course, very authentic. And is this the case at SK2? No, right? It's totally unrelated. So ideally, lesson 9, the also that they're very good in handicrafts. So she wanted to help themselves. So she set up this website, 10,000 Villages, where they could sell in the US their handicraft and artisan products. So in this case, you see also clearly the brand activism and the brand purpose is closely interlinked with the whole business idea. By every product that they put on the website, she is coming closer to achieve her brand purpose. Perfect. Yeah? And last lesson, lesson 10, brands must change actually from the inside out. That means in case of SK2, they just thought, oh, that's a good topic, let's do it. But inside the company did not change at all. That's very different at Brunello Cucinelli. That's a brand, I think that's for me the best example of a brand that stands for, actually, Mr. Brunello Cucinelli calls it ethical capitalism. He actually founded this idea. He had this experience that his father was bullied at work. He was bullied at school. So he always had this drive to treat people in a good way. So he developed his brand based on this idea from the inside out. He was always like this. He always treated people like this. And by doing this, he created this brand culture that radiates outside. So that means first, you need to change yourself, and then you can make a campaign, not the other way around, like SK2 did it. Yeah? So I think that are the main lessons to get an idea about brand activism. Now, here is an overview. So I guess, bottom line, the topic is very much like on time, right? It's very important. There's a lot we can do, but also a lot we can do wrong. And I think it also shows you that this is very much a huge thing. It's about branding, right? I mean, doing something wrong in branding has such a massive consequence for brands in a good or in a bad way. And that's why I want to show you at the end here also the structure of the MSc in High-End Brand Management program, because what this program is like really key, what's really core is branding, brand building. And personally, I don't know another program, I didn't find another program that is really so much about branding. We have really more branding and brand building courses than most other programs. That's a key thing. How to build a high-end brand, how to manage a high-end brand. And of course, it's related to topics that are very much related. It's about entrepreneurship, and major business functions that we need to create a new brand. It's also about consumer psychology, because if you want to do branding, it's always linked to consumer psychology. Now, if you know better persuasion, psychology, and research in psychology and consumer psychology, then you can improve your branding much better. Yeah? And of course, today, digitalization, e-commerce, social media, all these kind of topics are of course key for branding. It's so important that it's of course also a key topic in the program. And of course also retail distribution, because in high-end, there's an inverted HR pyramid, which means retail is extremely important. Most people in high-end brands actually work in retail. The money is made from sales from retail. So of course we need to take this into account as well. So that's what the program is about. I think it gives in, I wanted to just give you a short overview about this. And now we could, I think, start with the Q&A. Thank you. Jessica, do you want to moderate the Q&A, or do you want to add something to the high-end program? Okay, now I'm reading the comments. Let's see, is there?
Yes, we received, it's not a question. Okay.
Okay, Jessica, do you want to add something to the high-end program first and to say something about that, or you want to start with the Q&A?
There's a question for you, Klaus.
Yes.
So the question is, how do you see high-end brands after COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, we all know COVID-19 situation heavy. So it is 100% sure that the luxury industry and the high-end industry will be different after COVID-19. So now we can say, okay, how is it different? Of course, first of all, there will be probably economic problems, business problems for many companies, and the high-end brands have to find a way to improve their offers, to offer products that are just even better, so to get customers. But I think the high-end industry will change in a way that digitalization will become even more important. Customers today realize when they are shopping at home and when they are, do everything at home, that of course they already did that before, a lot of online shopping, a lot of like stuff from digital, but now it seems that this move towards digital is actually getting even, quicker. And it's even more power behind the digitalization. So I think this will drive a lot more ideas, for instance, about the use of avatars, the use of chatbots, and the idea how to turn the personal service, because luxury is a people's business. It's from human to human, from person to person. It's always very personal. And the challenge is for luxury brands to bring this personal level, this kind of interaction, human interaction online. This will be a big challenge, but I'm sure there will be a lot of new ideas, a lot of new stuff, and I think this will be a huge growth opportunity.
Thank you. The other question is, do you think Chinese customers sometimes too sensitive to brands' political stands?
We can never judge customers. Customers are, if I'm personally upset by something, then I'm just upset. And I could now say, oh, they shouldn't be that upset, but it doesn't help. Customers might be upset or they're not upset. I personally think that if I would be upset by everything that a brand is doing, in fact, I wouldn't buy anything anymore because I would be upset all the time. So, of course, there's always that thing. In general, I think we are all consumers, and our money is power. That means if you're taking money to brands that do stuff that we don't believe in, then we have the power to choose and to get to the brands that we think are doing things right. So in general, I think it's actually a good thing that people are deciding on purpose what organization to give their money. So I think that's actually a good thing. But at the same time, I think that some brands need to be more self-confident. You have your customers and you know what they want. And if someone else is making a big trouble about or something, sometimes you don't need to overreact as a response. You need to be also confident on what you believe in. If it was really wrong what you did, of course you need to apologize. But in sometimes luxury brands need to polarize, and it's okay to have a stand that some people don't like.
Okay. In your opinion, how to balance quality excellence and sustainability?
That's a big question. But I think, I think it's in itself already very much in line. If you want to make let's say if you want to do something sustainable, something good, you want to don't harm something, you really want to do something good, then almost always this costs money, right? And always this is also like requiring a certain level of quality. For instance, if you say I'm a sustainable brand, or maybe I'm an eco brand, I want to save resources, I don't want people to throw away my stuff too often, it automatically means that you have to increase quality so that it lasts longer. So I think these topics are very related anyway.
Okay, another question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge for high brand transitioning from Europe to Asia?
I think the biggest challenge is that everyone wants to go to China. The market is already settled. There's already so many information in Chinese consumers' minds about brands that it's very, very difficult to find the right target group. And many brands that go from Europe to Asia, they just think, we do advertising to Chinese clients, but the Chinese client, there is not this one client. It's very different types of Chinese clients, and the challenge is to find the right one. Because if you do not focus and you don't find the right one, you waste your money. And it's very easy in China to lose a lot of money by just pushing out some adverts, and it's basically lost in space, right? Nobody cares if you just spend some millions. Maybe nobody is at the end recognizing it. No?
Okay, another question is, what if a company or brand loses many customers in supporting minorities, let's say LGBT? Should they give up or continue?
It's hard to say or to answer in general because it depends on the brand. I think we now assume that you're an entrepreneur, right? And you want to learn how to set up your own brands, maybe by following the program, or to learn how to create a luxury brand or a high-end brand. Many entrepreneurs today, they believe in something that they really believe is the right thing. And in this case, they do it. That's what they do. Maybe they lose some customers, but some others love them even more. That means when you start with a brand, then you just do the right thing by targeting who you really believe in, and it absolutely makes sense. For a brand like Gillette or for SK-II, it's more difficult. And I think it's not a question of being rude to minorities. You should never be like, how would we say that, mean to some group or to exclude someone or whatever. But at the same time, it's a question of how you do it. There's always ways to do it in a way that everyone would accept it, and there are ways that people would find are pretty much annoying, like Gillette did it. So I think for small brands, it's not a problem anyway. For big brands, it's not this yes or no. It's very much about how you do it.
And I think this is the last question for now. So, another one came. So what do you see as a career opportunities for international students to work in the high brands in China?
For international students, so from students outside China, yeah. What I observe so far is that, first of all, studying in China makes a lot of sense. First of all, maybe to see China as a career country where you make a career. But even if you would not make a career in China, Chinese customers will be 50% or will be responsible for 50% of all luxury sales in 2025. So even if you go back to Europe, it would make a lot of sense to have some idea about the Chinese customers because they will be also in Europe. In China, I think that there's a lot of potential still also for international students to do internships in retail or in social media or whatever. My feeling is that a lot of companies want that. There are sometimes issues with visa to get the right visa, but of course this might be also a good idea to do that during your studies because then it's easier.
Okay.
But by the way, maybe I add to that. If I look at our students, then of course most students from, let's say, France, they also go back to France, and Chinese people go to China at the end of the day. But there are also many very nice cases of both Chinese students go to France and others go to China, where I see that they have very interesting jobs in China, working either in retail for Dior or working in at a big luxury group. So I mean, I see that of some of our students, it's actually happening. So I believe that there are a lot of chances that the Chinese market is one of the future market, and if a young student is spending time for internships in China or even the first years in a career in China, this can be a very good advantage.
Okay, we have another question. It's many customers don't value a brand CSR. How do you like it?
Many customers don't value the CSR. What you mean with do you like it? You mean me or?
I mean, what's your opinion about it? But a lot of customers don't value CSR.
I think it's absolutely true. I think that on the one hand, CSR is a huge trend, and we started. Many millennials are really into the cause, doing something good and so on. So there are a lot of people, and more people who want that. But at the same time, there are two things to have in mind. The first is, of course, not everyone wants it. There was a study by Mercedes-Benz sometime, and they were looking into building more eco-friendly engines, and they looked in customers, and they find out that very often they say, oh yes, we would like to have eco-friendly engine, but even if you ask them if they're ready to pay more for it, then the majority says, no, actually not. So that means we should never confuse, right? If you set up a business and you say, oh, I do good things, I'm into CSR and so on, it's nice, but nobody cares if that's all you have to offer. That means the main issue is that you have to have a brand mission. You need to really create value for the customer, something really, really good. You need to be extremely good in what you do. And on top of that, you put a higher purpose, a brand CSR, that is giving another dimension, a reason beyond the money. That means it only works in combination with a unique value proposition. It doesn't work on its own. If there's an entrepreneur who just goes out and thinks, I'm just doing these wonderful good things, nobody cares. It depends on how you do it with what else you do it together.
Okay, another question is, do you agree that China is becoming the largest luxury market in the world?
No, that's an easy question. I would say yes, and I would think it's already the largest, or maybe in terms of nationality, Chinese people are already the biggest group of luxury consumers worldwide, and it's already the most important market for luxury brands. So I'm not a genius if I would just say yes.
Okay, we have another question. Many luxury brands are more focusing on female market rather than male. Do male customers are less important for luxury brands, or is it a gender bias?
Depends mainly on the product category. So, there are some categories that are extremely female-driven, of course, fashion, usually actually soft luxury, and hard luxury like watches are more men-driven. But the differences are getting smaller. That means many fashion brands are trying hard to get into, more male markets. Many cosmetics brands are trying to sell actually cosmetics, and many men actually are more interested in cosmetics. So there's a difference, but they're getting smaller.
Okay, another question is, some brands design products for people with disabilities. Do you think this will become a trend?
I think there will be small companies like Rebirth Garments that I just was showing in a presentation. They focus on body positivity, and I think it's a great trend. It's definitely, there's definitely a market. It will work. I also think that today the costs of creating a company and a business are actually much lower because of the digital opportunity, like sales channels, social media, advertising, and so on that exist than before. It means you can create a brand for a very specific market, potentially for being, let's say, people with a certain disability. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think this was the last question. If anyone has another question, feel free to ask now. Okay, I think that was all. Once again, thanks a lot, Klaus, for all these wonderful explanations. I hope that everyone enjoyed a lot this webinar. As Jessica put in the conversation group, you can still apply for the iBrand program. The selection is still ongoing, so feel free to apply online if you want. And if you have any questions regarding this webinar or the program of High-End Brand, we will be glad to answer to all of your questions by mail.
Good. Then thank you. It was my first webinar, so it was a pleasure. Thank you and goodbye. Good evening, everyone. Hello or goodbye to Shanghai.